Driver, stay in the vehicle. This is soldier work. The sergeant's dismissive words echoed in Private First Class Arya Davis's mind as she watched the convoy roll out without her. 22 years old, 9 months in the army, and everyone saw her the same way. Just the base driver, the girl who ferried officers between buildings, too small and too quiet to be a real soldier. But when 30 enemy fighters ambushed the patrol that had left her behind, when the radios went silent and the gunfire erupted, Arya did something no one expected. She grabbed the M249 saw from the armory, climbed into her SUV, and drove straight into hell. What happened in the next 3 hours would force every soldier on that base to redefine what they thought they knew about courage, capability, and the quiet private they had all underestimated. Because sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the gun, it's the warrior nobody saw coming. Private First Class Arya Davis had been called a lot of things during her 9 months at Forward Operating Base Sentinel. Taxi service, Officer Uber, that quiet girl who drives. But her favorite, delivered with maximum condescension by Staff Sergeant Marcus Kowalski, was just a base driver. She was small, barely 5 feet 4, with dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun and brown eyes people described as soft or gentle. At 22, she looked even younger, which didn't help. The other soldiers treated her like a mascot, a kid sister, someone to be protected rather than relied upon. What they didn't know, what no one bothered to ask, was that Arya had grown up in rural Montana on a ranch where shooting wasn't a hobby, it was survival. Her father had taught her to handle pistols and hunting rifles before she was 10, and she'd learned early that being underestimated was sometimes the best tactical advantage. The army had assigned her to motor pool duty, drive officers to meetings, transport supplies, shuttle dignitaries. It wasn't what she'd imagined when she enlisted, dreaming of the front lines, but the military had a way of putting people into boxes based on first impressions. This Tuesday morning started like every other. Arya completed her pre-operation checks on the armored SUV, tire pressure, fluids, comm systems, everything perfect. Davis, Sergeant Kowalski barked across the motor pool. Run Colonel Patterson to the communications building. VIP transport. Yes, Sergeant. She grabbed her keys in her untouched in combat Beretta M9 and picked up the colonel. He barely acknowledged her, treating her like furniture, and when he left the vehicle, he didn't even say thank you. She parked and waited for the next assignment, until the radio crackled with a transmission that changed everything. All units, Patrol Echo 6 is under attack. Heavy contact. Static swallowed the rest, followed by automatic gunfire and shouting. Arya froze. Echo 6 was the patrol that had left the base an hour earlier. Sergeant Kowalski, Lieutenant Brennan, Corporal Hughes, and 9 others. More frantic transmissions followed. We're pinned down. At least 30 hostiles. We need backup now. Base command responded that reinforcements were mobilizing, but Arya knew they wouldn't arrive in time. She looked toward the armory just 50 meters away. Inside was the M249 SAW, belt-fed, devastating suppressive fire, and she knew exactly where it was because she delivered supplies there countless times. She sprinted. The armory sergeant, Torres, stared as she burst in. Davis, what? Echo 6 is being massacred, she said. I need the saw. You're a driver. You're not. There's no time, she snapped, and something in her eyes made Torres step aside. She grabbed the 17-pound machine gun, 4 ammo boxes, and ran back to the SUV. Torres yelled, over the radio, that she needed authorization. Arya switched the radio off and headed for the gate. The guards, confused, stepped out to stop her. Davis, you need orders. One shouted. Echo 6 is dying, she yelled back, leaning out the window. Move or get run over. They moved. The road to the ambush site was 8 kilometers of rough terrain. Arya sped toward the rising smoke. She had never been in real combat. Training, childhood on the ranch, hours at the firing range, that was it. Now she would find out if it was enough. Cresting a hill, she saw the valley, a perfect kill zone. 2 Humvees disabled, 1 burning, bodies on the ground, survivors pinned behind wreckage, surrounded by at least 30 hostiles in the rocks. Outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time, Arya slammed on the brakes, skidded to high ground, grabbed the M249, and set up behind the engine block. Her father's voice echoed, when you're outgunned, you need surprise and aggression. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and don't stop. She deployed the bipod, loaded the belt, chambered around, and sighted her first target. Breath in, half out, squeeze. The saw roared. The first fighter vanished under the burst. She shifted aim and fired again. The enemy, focused on the trapped patrol, never expected machine gun fire from the flank. Rounds sparked off the SUV's armor as they returned fire, but Arya kept her bursts controlled, 5 to 7 rounds, exactly as trained. Below, the Americans realized what was happening. "Who the hell is that?" Kowalski yelled over the radio. "Is that Davis?" Lieutenant Brennan replied, stunned. "Whoever it is, they just saved our asses." Using her distraction, the patrol advanced. Arya reloaded smoothly, even as bullets slammed into the SUV. When an enemy fighter raised an RPG, Arya fired from the hip at close range, taking him down before he could launch. "Davis, fall back," Brennan ordered. She ignored him. If she stopped, her friends would die. The saw grew hotter, waves of heat shimmering from the barrel, but it kept firing. The enemy force, expecting an easy ambush, began to break. Arya alone had dropped at least 8. The Americans closed in. "They're retreating," Corporal Hughes shouted, but 5 fighters were regrouping behind rocks, enough to restart the fight. Arya left cover and moved toward them on foot. "Davis, get back," Brennan yelled. She didn't answer. Using the terrain like she had stalking deer in Montana, she closed to 30 meters before they saw her. The lead fighter froze at the sight, a lone American woman, small and steady, advancing with a machine gun. He raised his rifle. Arya fired first. 10 seconds later, all 5 were down. Silence fell over the valley. The enemy was dead or fleeing. American soldiers approached, staring at the quiet driver who had become a one-woman army. Kowalski approached, stunned. "Davis, what the hell was that?" "My job, Sergeant. I'm a soldier, same as you." Brennan arrived with the casualty report. 32 confirmed enemy Kia. 15 directly by Private Davis's fire. The rest eliminated because of her covering fire. "She saved all of us." Corporal Hughes approached with a radio. "Command wants to know about the unauthorized vehicle, and the base driver who stole a machine gun and went AWOL." Arya's stomach dropped. She had violated multiple orders, court-martial offenses. But Brennan straightened. "Tell command that Private Davis single-handedly prevented 12 American deaths and turned the tide of the battle. Tell them we're bringing home a hero." Returning to base was surreal. Soldiers lined the route, silent with respect for the quiet driver who had saved Echo 6. At the motor pool, Colonel Patterson and Colonel Elizabeth Hendricks waited. Arya stepped out at attention. Hendricks addressed her sharply. "You violated multiple regulations today. You took a weapon without authorization. You left the base without orders. You engaged enemy forces without approval." "Yes, ma'am," Arya whispered. "You also," Hendricks continued, her tone changing, "saved 12 American soldiers and neutralized a superior enemy force. Your initiative and courage exceeded anything we've seen from soldiers 10 times your experience." She held up Colonel Patterson's insignia. "I'm told Sergeant Kowalski called you just a base driver. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am." Hendricks turned to the sergeant. "Would you like to revise that assessment?" Kowalski stepped forward. "Ma'am, Private Davis is not just a base driver. She's not just a soldier. She's a goddamn warrior, and I was wrong." Applause spread through the motor pool. Hendricks lifted a hand and silence fell. "Private Davis, you're being recommended for the Bronze Star with Valor, now upgraded to a Silver Star. You're also being reassigned. The 75th Ranger Regiment has requested your transfer." The regiment she had dreamed of. "Yes, ma'am," Arya said, voice trembling. Very interested. Word spread fast. Soldiers who had ignored her now sought her out to hear her story. 3 days later, Torres arrived at her door with a case. Inside was the M249 she had used, cleaned, serviced, and engraved. PFC Arya Davis, 32 Kia, Fob Sentinel. "You earned it," Torres said. "And if you're going to the Rangers, you'll want a weapon you know." After he saluted her, Arya sat holding the weapon that had transformed her from overlooked driver to warrior. She thought of Montana, of 9 months of invisibility, of 3 hours that changed everything. Warriors aren't defined by their assignments, they're defined by what they do when the moment comes. The next morning, as she drove off base for her new assignment, soldiers lined the road again, this time saluting her. Behind her, unexpectedly, a convoy formed, Lieutenant Brennan's Humvee, Kowalski's transport, and Corporal Hughes in the rear. "Davis," Brennan radioed, "you're not making this trip alone. Echo 6 escorts its own." Emotion tightened her throat. She had earned their respect, their brotherhood, their recognition. At the Ranger training facility, the men formed up and saluted her one last time. Kowalski handed her the Echo 6 insignia. You bled with us, fought with us, saved us, you're part of Echo 6, honorary. She held the patch like the treasure it was. Then she stepped toward her new future. A grizzled master sergeant met her at the gate, eyeing her small frame skeptically. Impressive combat record, he growled. But this isn't a 3-hour firefight. Most men twice your size wash out week 1. You sure you belong here? Arya met his eyes without flinching. She remembered the valley, the heat of the saw, the moment she refused to be boxed in. Master Sergeant, she said quietly, I'm not here to prove I belong. I'm here because I already know I do. The only question is whether you're ready to see what happens when someone like me is finally given a chance. He studied her, then the corner of his mouth twitched. Fall in, Ranger candidate. And Davis, welcome to the regiment. We've been waiting for someone like you. Because sometimes the most dangerous weapon in any arsenal isn't the biggest or the loudest. Sometimes it's the one nobody saw coming. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this.